Hey guys, this is Nightman39, and welcome to yet another episode of Imports Unknown. Is that still the title? Whatever. This time, it's another crossover fighting game centered around anime that's based on light novels, licensed under Dengeki Bunko...
Hey, Nightman.
What the... Jesus, Snake. You scared the hell out of me.
I heard you were doing a review on a particular fighting game.
Yeah, but... why are you here?
Well, I've been bored, so I figured I'd tag along this because this game's been on my mind for the longest time.
Sure.
Alright, let's do this!
As I was gonna say beforehand, Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax is a crossover fighting game based on a certain licensed anime which, like J-Stars, is celebrating its 20th anniversary. Its cast of fighters are the main or major characters of their respective animes, as well as a plethora of non-playable support characters, but more on that later. Examples of animes being represented include Sword Art Online, Durarara, Orimo, and my personal favorite, A Certain Magical Index.
I would also like to bring up the fact that this game was actually handled by Ecolo Software and Frenchbed, who worked on Type Moon's Melted Blood, one of my favorite Dojin fighters, as well as another fighter, Under Night in Birth, which I'll save the details about that title for another video. To start off with, the game has a basic set of modes that everyone would expect from a standard 2D fighter, such as Training, Versus, Online, etc. But the only mode that sort of stands out is the Story mode, which has two modes of play, such as Arcade mode and Dream Duel, but we'll cover those later.
The gameplay, unlike J-Stars, plays like any 2D fighter. You have your typical one-on-one fight with the best 2 out of 3 rounds.
The controls are your typical A, B, and C, and or in this case, square, triangle, and circle, with a fourth button for your assist character.
Each character has their basic and specialty set, and while there is no tutorial mode, it's really easy to learn how to use each character, so it's a perfect game for beginners.
Like most fighting games, each character has a meter for you, and your opponent will be able to pull off a fancy special move depending on what level.
Normal moves are easy to pull off, and you will be able to cancel special moves and supers.
Impact attacks work sorta similar to command attacks, which you even get the ability to counter opponent attacks and do overheads to inflict some serious damage.
There are two mechanics called Universal Potential and Unique Potential. Universal Potential is activated when your HP bar is near the danger zone, and your damage will increase for 20 seconds.
Unique Potential is a character specific. If you're playing as Kirito, for example, he gets a 30-hit combo, his attack power increases.
There's a large amount of assist characters in the game. They have two types of attacks that are unique from one another. Some are 100% offensive and help out with hidden combos. And there are also others with the ability to counter to get you out of a bad situation, as well as causing your status effects.
One last thing I want to mention about the mechanics is the level of accessibility. If you played the Persona 4 Arena games beforehand, you'll definitely remember the auto combo system that was in those games. Fighting Climax pretty much has that feature too, which may rub some people who are more or less not a fan of easy to play fighters, but as far as I'm concerned, when I dived into this game, I know deep down it was more trying to be a balance of an anime fighter and a traditional 2D fighter. Therefore, I don't feel the need to bash this fighter based on its accessibility, which in this case makes one of the more easier fighters to get into and learn its mechanics rather quickly.
By the way, Snake.
Yes, Nightman?
You know what's also an important aspect of a fighting game?
Yes?
The roster.
Oh my god, you gotta be freaking kidding me, I don't want to see her face!
While Fighting Climax doesn't have the most amount of fighters to offer, I feel like it wouldn't hurt to briefly talk about each fighter individually. Shana, the main characters from the series Shakugan no Shana, who's a being known as a flame page. She's one of the sword-wielding characters, and is good for close combat, but she has a few range attacks too. I think she's a well-rounded character with a lot of fun moves, so she's one of my main.
Kirito, Sword Art Online's main character, or what I like to call him, Mr. No Personality. He is a teen who plays MMOs and went through a lot of bullshit in his show. He's another soul wielder. He's primarily a defense kind of character and has his dual wielding ability ready at hand. However, while Kirito's impact attack is essentially the ability to dual wield his swords, he happens to be really relying on them, thus kind of making him one of my least favorite characters to use.
Asuna, or what I like to call her Mr. No Personality's semi-useless girlfriend, who becomes a damsel in distress in the second arc. Despite being such a boring character in her own show, Asuna is actually a pretty decent playable character here. Her attacks are very effective, especially at close range.
Miyuki Shiba, the lead heroine from the Irregular at Magic High School. The only thing you need to know about her is that she has a thing for her own brother. Anyway, she's a very effective range fighter using her magic attacks, and her super move is a trap. It was at first a bit of a learning curve using Miyuki, but after some practice she became a fighter I like to use every now and then.
Rentaro Sautelme, the protagonist of the series Black Bullet. While the show Black Bullet is very hit and miss, the main character Rentaro was definitely the reason I kept watching. He's a high school student who is also a part of an organization called Civil Security, who specializes in exterminating the monsters in the show, known as Gasteria. He's one of my personal mains because he's a good long-range fighter, with a pistol on hand, but also has a few close-range attacks in his moveset as well, added to the fact that his special moves are really fun to pull off and to watch.
Next up is a heroine I'm not too fond of, Yukina Higuragi from Strike the Blood. Oh dear god, do I hate this character. Let's just say that she's some girl that was sent from some organization to observe the protag, who is some strong vampire of the anime. The thing I can't stand about her is this. However, this puts me in a very awkward position because a friend once told me prior to subjecting myself into watching this thing that she was one of my personal mains, and to be honest, I can't really deny that because while I can't stand her as a character, I do find her to be a very competent fighter. Her spear attacks can have a variety of hitboxes and output a lot of damage, so therefore as a fighter, I would still use her every now and then.
Taiga Aisaka, one of the main characters from the romance show Toradora. Taiga, like Shauna, is one of Rei Kugamiya's famous tsundere roles. She's a good character in the series, as the show itself was about starting a relationship and how the two main characters get closer. Taiga is primarily a power character. Her attacks tend to be her throwing shit at her opponents and riding on a sled to give off some serious damage.
Shizuo Hiwajima, the representative of Dorada. I could go on and on of how much of a badass this character is, but basically he's a dude with anger management problems and that for some reason gives him supernatural strength despite breaking all sorts of his own bones in the past and whatnot. And he also wants to kill this guy. Basically, I would describe Shizuo as a powerhouse character since he's able to throw and hit with heavy objects as well as being able to spin throw his opponents. He is a force to be reckoned with since he can also taunt his opponents and counter if struck at the right time. Because of this, he is one of my favorite characters to use, and if you're a fan of this character, you will not be disappointed in using him.
Mikoto Misaka. She acts as the representative of a certain magical index series, and she's one of the most popular characters. So popular she got her own side story, a certain scientific railgun. As you can tell, people like her a little more than Index herself, and I can't blame them on that. Index is a character who can be very grating at times. Anyways, Mikoto is one of the level 5 espers in the fictional city called Academy City, thus makes her a big shot at the school she attends. And she has a crush on Index's main hero, Toma Kamijo. But won't admit it, seriously, what's with this game and having tsundere as its roster? She was the character I was most excited to play as, not just because I'm a fan of the Raildex series. Poor Toma and Accelerator got the short end of the stick here, but we'll get back to that. But because her moveset is just plain awesome. With the use of her electric shock powers, and not to mention her signature railgun as her special move, she is one chick you don't want to screw with, which is why I highly recommend choosing her.
Okay, next up is Tomoko from Rokobo. Okay, long story short, one story in and I couldn't go on watching the anime for obvious reasons. Anyway, all I could say about her character is that she is a elementary school girl who likes to play basketball and is part of some elementary school basketball team. That's basically the gist I got from the first episode. However, despite not being a fan of this character, she's actually very handy in combat and she's what I like to call a competent joke fighter. Being able to hilariously turn her opponents into basketballs and dribble them is one of the few things she's capable of doing. She's essentially one of those game's grieving characters.
So the next character on this list is a beauty named Kuroyuki Hime from the series XO World. I only watched one episode, but I can already sense that she's a strong female lead. Which is saying something, considering that this is from the same guy who writes Sword Art Online. She's the leader of a legion known as the Nega Nebulous, and is partners with this little fat kid here. She's a very good character if you know how to use her. You can trap her opponents, summon her assistants for a hand in the fight, and can be a real powerhouse when her special is in use.
Kirino Kosaka, the main heroine and otaku sister to the main protagonist Orimo, since I don't feel like saying the anime's original long-ass name. While I don't particularly care much for her since I find Kuroneko to be more of an interesting character, she is a very combo-oriented character and is quite easy to use since she utilizes her athleticism and cosplay attacks in the heat of battle, as well as being able to throw Amazon boxes and panties. However, one thing I like about using her is trolling Nightman in versus mode matches with her.
Excuse me a sec. Hello?
Fuck you! Since this game is made by Sega, you would think that Sega characters would be in the roster.
And this game does. In fact, it has two, Akira from Virtual Fighter and Severia from Valkyria Chronicles.
Akira is one of the main characters from the Virtual Fighter series, and is essentially the Ryu of this franchise. He plays like a powerhouse kind of character, and to note, he makes for one of the easiest boss characters in any fighting game.
Now for the second Sega character, I want to give the honor of having this one covered by Blonde Guy Gamer. Blondie?
What? You want me to contribute to this? I haven't played the game at all, so how can I talk about it?
Oh, don't worry. The script will tell you everything you need to know.
Oh. How meta. Alright, fine. Here we have Silveria, one of the more prominent antagonists from the first Valkyria Chronicles. Since then she's had some other outside recognition like Akira, but in a fan service sense, given the fact that the game likes to showcase her, assets, especially in story mode cutscenes of her. In order to unlock her, you have to finish most of your fights in arcade mode with hyper special moves at least 8 times, which can be somewhat cumbersome, and then beat her in the final fight. Severia can be described as a ranged weapon user since she has certain attacks that have large hitboxes along with shooting projectiles at her opponents. I also find it funny they added Alicia as an assist to represent the game. It totally makes sense having two sworn enemies working together in a crossover anime fighting game. Well, better her than Alias from the second Valkyria Chronicles. That one's a little too lolly magical girl even for this game.
Thanks, Blondie. That added a lot to this review.
I'm sure it did. You guys continue with your anime fighting game. I need to get back to more important things.
Sure thing. See ya.
Now that we've covered every character, our overall thoughts is that even though we don't like certain characters in the roster, it gets the job done, and the characters are at least fun to play as.
However, I would like to point out one particular issue I personally have with the roster, and that is the blatant favoritism towards Sword Art Online. While I don't have an issue at all with at least one character being playable, but having two Sword Art Online characters while the other series only have one is kinda bit unfair.
While I don't have a problem with having support characters in the game, this game suffers from one flaw that J-Star has. Protagonist characters being support. Except this time it's worse. Like I mentioned earlier, that Toma and Accelerator, while in the game, got the short hand of the stick. And that's because they are support despite the fact that they're main characters in the Index series and are badasses at that. So why the hell are they support? Hell, why is Durarura's Celtia support? She would be a fine addition as a playable character. I'll add that the update version is going to have the character Tatsuya from the Irregular at Magic High School, who is a support in this game, gets a promotion to playable character in the next one. As well as Kuroko Shirai from Railgun gets added for some Yuri love.
Now, going by the modes of play, well, there's really not a lot to talk about since the modes that they give you are basically what you expect in the average fighter.
However, there's a mode for single player aside from arcade called Dream Duel. While the arcade mode has its story, Dream Duel actually has the characters interact before fighting, which is a bit odd, but whatever. You choose your character and you go through 6 fights in a row, and once you're finished, that's pretty much about it.
The only other mode that's worth mentioning is how competent the online mode is, and it works for the most part despite some lag issues, and local versus mode, well, goes without saying. There are some other things to unlock other than the 2 boss characters, but they're not anything to write home about, other than more colors for the characters to use, while others are just voice icon titles, etc. So, nothing special, sadly.
Arcade mode has the story where whatever character you choose is in a dream, and he or she is contacted by who we will call the Sega Dreamcast chick. While on the subject of Sega, all the stages are modeled after Sega games. For example, Soccer Wars, Valkyria Chronicles, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Nights into Dreams.
To describe Dream Duel in a more accurate sense, it's kinda like Choose Your Own Adventure. But it really just boils down to choose whatever your next opponent is going to be, just to see some fan-fictional fight dialogue cutscenes, which really don't add much to the game. I honestly think this mode was put in here just so the writers can write more dialogue cutscenes for characters that obviously can't coexist in a coherent lore and setting.
Overall, I find this game to be a solid fighter. It's not for everyone, but if you're a fan of any of these animes, it's a real treat.
Even if you're remotely curious to play it, I say give it a shot. It's made by Ecolo Software and Frenchbed, who definitely know how to make solid fighters, not to mention this game has been localized a while ago as of this review, and plus there's an updated version that will most likely be out in Japan by the time you're watching this review.
Well, glad we finally got that covered, despite Ignition already being out.
Well, better late than never at this rate. An updated version will be relocalized by the time I review this.
Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope you guys enjoyed this review. See ya!
By the way, Strike the Blood sucks!
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching our review of Fighting Climax. If you enjoyed our video, we have mine and Shadow Snake's previous reviews right here, and make sure to give either one of us a subscribe. And make sure to check out River City Gamers for more content from us and others. See you next video.